And that's crazy because we see hundreds of appointments come in through online booking a month. And I just have to assume that if online booking's not in place, that those couple hundred appointments are going somewhere else.
AI isn't just changing dentistry, it's completely redefining it. Tune into Byte Sized Podcast, the dental AI and tech podcast, and stay ahead of the curve.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Byte Sized Podcast. I'm bringing on a return guest, Colin Ambler. What up, Colin? How you doing?
Hey, Adrian, thanks for inviting me back. Love to be here.
Colin's a good dude. Anyway, Colin, his wife is a doctor, a dentist, and you kind of managed the practice for a little while, didn't you? Kind of?
Long time. Yeah, long time. We were a scratch, and I was like the business arm of it. And we scaled up quickly, 14 operatories, 7 doctors, a lot of hygienists, 20, 30 hygienists, many of them being part-time. But yeah, like that was my world, and we've shifted out since. But the practice is still running great.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So Colin, as he's running the practice and trying to figure out how to, make some money, he develops, he got a software background, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you had a coding kind of software background? Okay. And he's kind of a nerd. I know he doesn't look like a nerd, but he's a total nerd.
We all nerded hard, aren't we?
Nerds are cool. They used to not be cool back in the day, Anyway, he developed some systems and some software systems, and he eventually launched a company called TeamCare Dental, which I looked at, and I think it's a fantastic product. And so we're not going to talk too much about TeamCare, but there is a module inside of his TeamCare product. Well, actually, why don't you give us just a 30-second overview of what TeamCare is really quick, just so people have some understanding of what they get if they got it.
TeamCare was born out of our own necessity, trying to manage staff and manage processes around the office, like eliminating the spreadsheets. It's just like manageable to figure out who's doing what and keeping track of things and having accountability. So TeamCare is really internally focused around workflows of the staff. And we also have an incentivization model that allows people to get paid when they do a great job or when they hit a goal or things like that.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So it's like a dashboard. It integrates with the practice management system. So it gives you all your data, but then it has some modules in it that kind of like actually going to help you to focus on like gaps and problems and the incentivization model. We talked about that in an earlier podcast. What I wanted to focus on today was a problem that we have been trying to figure out at My Social Practice, where, we're doing all this marketing and, we're hired to put butts in seats. That's it, flat out. So we're doing websites and SEO and ads and social media and blah, 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 whatever, anything digital. And if we don't get scheduled appointments, then we get fired, So we have a goal at My Social Practice to try and increase butts and seats, period, right? It's not just traffic to the site. We got to get people to schedule. And one of the problems that we've run into is that there's a gap between doing all this marketing and actually getting the butt in the seat, which is the actual scheduled appointment. And so there's lots of like things that fall apart between the marketing and the patient showing up in the chair. And some of those are things like, does the practice answer phone calls? So we've built solutions to try and solve that problem. But the other one that's a really big problem and that we didn't really implement until maybe just the last little while, which is just getting people to schedule and making the scheduling process the simplest process as possible. And so you've developed a scheduling tool or an online scheduling or booking tool inside of your system. And I want to talk about the benefits of doing that and how online scheduling, what there might be the resistance in the industry to using online scheduling, and what you've seen as a practice owner to suggest that this is like a really freaking good idea and that people should absolutely do it. So let's start with, what's the problem with not having online scheduling? Like, what are the problems that a practice runs into if they don't have it and they just want to manage their schedule manually?
Yeah, I think it's crazy. I've been in and out of probably thousands of dental offices, and I've spoke with people, and I'm always dumbfounded when, we go to, one of the kind of routine consultation steps that you might take with a dentist that you're trying to help grow their practice, grow their business, is go to their website and see if online booking is easy and see if there's availability when you open up the online calendar. Can patients get into your office? And oftentimes we find that like they go to the website and there is no online booking at all. And why would you not do online booking? And what I found is that a lot of people just might just struggle with getting it done. It's one more thing on the list, and they say, I know I have to do it. It's been on my list for a while, and they just haven't done it. And so I haven't seen a lot of people completely resist it, but for some reason, it doesn't become a priority in what I've seen. And that's crazy because we see hundreds of appointments come in through online booking a month. And I just have to assume that if online booking's not in place, that those couple hundred appointments are going somewhere else.
So here's what I've run into. I'll talk to a doctor or an office manager, and they say, we do not want any online booking because we like to control the schedule. Now, I don't know what that means. I mean, there's some manual process of the confirmation and whatnot. What's happening in that process where a practice wants to make a phone call, talk to the patient, find out what they're up to, then schedule them, right? Like what's happening in that would be a benefit to a practice rather than just booking the appointment and then calling the patient and talking to them?
I'm not 100% sure. I think I have seen that kind of feedback from practices and, staff members in practices where maybe there's just like a lack of easy controls within the software. I can totally relate to people out there that if things aren't set up right and the online booking tool is putting appointments all over the schedule and we're having to call patients back and say, hey, this was done as a mistake. It's like it only takes a couple of appointments like that to tick off staff members.
Just piss them off
and just say, hey, this ain't worth it anymore. So I think when we've gone about, and I've seen all of the, tools out there, we've worked with several of them, it is a little clunky. And so it was one of the things that we took in building ours. But I mean, generally speaking, I think you probably agree is that in today's world, you have Resi, you have Uber Eats, you have DoorDash, stuff like that. And you kind of just click a couple buttons and you're good. I think that there's probably a friction out there that it's like people today, they want to click a couple buttons and just be good. And they don't want to have to pick up the phone, talk to someone, tell a lot of information over the call. I think most people don't like to get on the phone necessarily. And so an easy access online booking that does it is the way people want to kind of get into your practice. And maybe there's a friction point on the other end of the receiving end where appointments, aren't going in to the spots that you want them to. But I think today's world, like if you don't offer an online booking on your website, I think people are just going somewhere else. They don't want to pick up the phone call.
There's a ton of consumer research data on Gen X. I'm a Gen X. There's a lot of Gen X that just feel the same way that millennials and Gen Zs do, which is like they highly prioritize their time, and efficiency is like a big deal. And they want to get stuff done on their cell phone without making phone calls, right? So online booking seems like a natural solution to a problem that fits within the social kind of behavior of what most people are like. I mean, my mom and dad, baby boomers, they're not going to schedule online. They would rather make a call and do it like they've done their whole life, right? But there's definitely a shift in consumer behavior in the last 30, 40 years. So, I mean, I read an article in Accenture that said that 70% of all millennials want online booking for freaking everything. Like it's a huge portion of millennials. And millennials are what? They're like millennials, when I don't know when they grew up, but they probably are within, they're in their 20s probably, maybe early 30s-ish, So
I think there's something to like being able to browse appointment slots too, that's nice. When you talk to someone, they might make an offering of, hey, well, there's a lot of back and forth that you might do in those like appointment exchanges. And, people's days are different all the time. Like, I'm off from work on Tuesday mornings, but I work Thursday nights. You
Yeah.
have it's kind of like playing Go Fish when you're talking to someone over the phone. But there's a different experience when you can just look at the available appointments and pick the one that works for you and get a big green check mark telling you that it's done and having that be really clean.
Yeah. If there's an extra step for a consumer, like if I were to call your office, you don't have, if I go to your website and let's say that you don't have an online booking system, but you have an appointment request form, which is what I would say most practices have appointment request forms. It's not an actual appointment. It's just a form that I put my name, email, phone, and I maybe have a note in there about why I want to come in. And it sends a message to the practice, and the practice then has to read through the message. So it's an additional task. They call me, have a conversation, then they schedule me and confirm the appointment and whatnot. So that extra step of the patient having to wait for the follow-up phone call from the practice.
Yeah, they're like,
that's
oh,
annoying.
Did I get the
super
appointment?
Annoying.
It's not confirmed yet. It's like
super annoying.
It's anxious. Yeah, super
Because
annoying.
Here's what happens. The practice calls the patient. The patient's in a meeting. They can't answer their phone. They miss it. Maybe the patient calls back. They get the answering machine, and all of a sudden it's screwed. Like that amount of effort in order to schedule an appointment with a dental practice is too much nowadays. It's just too much. We wrote an ebook called The Frictionless Future. It was all about online booking. And I think the title was something like, booking a dental appointment should be as easy as ordering DoorDash. That's what the consumers want, right?
Yeah.
So,
and I think, it's like we've coached our staff for years and really dissected the intake phone calls. It's like you want everything to be frictionless, like including online booking, and if you're kind of asking too many questions even during the intake process, like all of those are impediments that, someone, oh my God, this is too much work. I just, and if you start asking too many questions and making, it's, well, how about this? How about this? Making the offering too much or asking like invasive questions like social security number or narrating your insurance information over, like all of these are adding friction points into that intake process. And we've done so much with our internal phone skills to reduce that and limit it and bring it down to its most like essential form. Nothing can be in there. And I think the online booking tools, ours included, are like very intentionally engineered to optimize on that frictionless point. And so it's like, it's crazy to me again to see people aren't taking advantage of online booking. Also because of, for all the reasons you said, but also like it's available 24/7. We see so many of our online booking appointment confirmations come through after hours, and we're open till 8 p.m. We answer most phone calls, but how many people out there have kids and they work all day and they finish their day and they tuck their kids to bed and then they start, doing like virtual errands on the internet. I got to schedule this.
Yeah, but they
that.
could have just, if they had online booking, they might take 3 minutes in the middle of their day and book the appointment rather than waiting to make a phone call in the evening, right? I mean, that's what you're giving the patient, giving them the opportunity to get that task done quicker, right?
Yeah, and if you're up late at night, like maybe you're doing stuff at 10 o'clock at night, like you can't contact the office, but you can still cross that thing off your list. You're like, I still made the appointment. I was still able to get in. And it's to your point. Nobody wants to do that request dance of, did I get it? Did I not? They're going to call me back. It just has to go right into the system.
I think a lot of practices, I'm guessing here, I'm projecting a little bit, not projecting, guessing, that they make a decision about whether to use online booking based upon the additional tasks or the shift in the processes inside of the office, not on what the patients want. The patients want frictionless processes. They don't want to have to make the phone call. They don't want to have to receive a phone call back. They want to book in 90 seconds. And that's what the patient wants. On the practice side, because that's a different model for how practices have typically run, it just creates the friction of change, right? Okay, well, how do we handle this? Okay, it's different than we've done things in the past. Let's not do that. And so they're resistant to change. I think that's probably one of the issues, but the reality of it is the decisions should be made in terms of running a business or a dental practice on how do you make the experience a better experience for your patient, period. I mean, that's where and then adjust internally to make that happen.
100%.
That's what I run into when I talk to doctors that don't want to do it.
Yeah, I think you're right too. And I think that, sometimes staff can have, an influence over their managing doctors or whatever. No, doctor, we can't use that online because it was in some way, shape, or form inconvenient for them. But it's a big kind of business decision to not do that. You're leaving a lot on the table. And so, I think sometimes that doctor owners can get swayed by their staff members to do stuff that might not be in the best interest of the business. But for the staff, it's like they might not care as much about if they're not getting as many online appointments. For the doctor that's spending marketing dollars and trying to make sure that payroll is met and stuff like that, like you need those. You need to be opportunistic and get every appointment that you can.
That's actually a really good point. It's trying to align the motivation of the team with the motivation of the practice. Employees, I run a company, I have employees, they're fantastic, but they're not concerned about the profitability of the organization. Mm-hmm. They're concerned about getting their job done and doing it right and being efficient. But, if they have extra time here and there, they've got all their tasks done. It's not like they're going to be looking for opportunities to help the company make more money. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. They're just not, right?
And they're not looking for more tasks. They're like, oh, I can relax for a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So I imagine that in a dental practice, based upon the expectations of the employee, whether it's front desk or hygiene or whatever it might be, that as soon as they get their tasks done, TikTok shows up on their phone and they're going to kill 10 minutes, right? So what I think you're saying here is, I'm taking this a step further. If you have online booking, okay, so you would have a reactivation campaign at your office so that when there's downtime, people are making phone calls, I would imagine, to try and reactivate patients. So you probably have texts and emails that go out to reactivate patients. So when there's downtime at the office, that time of trying to get the employee to actually do an additional activity is probably really difficult to motivate them. I know that this kind of dovetails into your product with, we talk about incentives, but I don't want to talk about that today. What I'm looking at is, would you set up your online booking to overbook?
Oh,
right. So
yeah, we are going down the rabbit hole. Well, I'll say two things. Number one, we do those campaigns and we do, seasonal campaigns. I'm sure that you've done marketing campaigns on behalf of practices for like back to school or end of the year, use it or lose it, insurance campaigns, things like that. Like, what's the difference in sending out, a sample email blast campaign and saying, click here to book online versus click here to call the office? Maybe the patient's willing to do that just because they want to get in. But every time that they call the office versus book online, like, it's more work for your staff. And it's not that the staff maybe cares about answering the phone, but what are they not able to do because all the phones are jammed up? Maybe they're missing out on new patient phone calls. Maybe they could be in presenting a treatment plan. Like, we talk about that in our office all the time. It's like, we would like to do better and have more processes in our office and make sure that we can get all the checklists done. But sometimes we're so jammed on the phones are ringing off the hook. And it's like, online booking is a way to delegate that and just have it be done in the background. And your staff can do stuff that's more in person. It's like the things that technology can't replicate are the patient experiences that you give direct in the office. And so if online booking can be a way to offload like all those inbound phone calls and all the appointment request forms that you need to follow up on, great, maximize what your staff can do while they're in office.
I read another article, I think it was by Patient Pop, They said that the front desks, they broke down the amount of time that the front desk spends and what they're spending their time on. And like 30%, I think it was 30 to 40%, was all about scheduling. So they're getting calls a third of the time ish, somewhere around there, about scheduling appointments. So what you're saying is online scheduling can solve a lot of that
Well,
bandwidth problem.
I mean, we work in the business world, and it's like, how much easier is it for you to send someone your HubSpot meeting schedule link than to try to have 3 or 4 email exchanges
No, it's
to
ridiculous. No, I wouldn't do that. It's
you
stupid.
never would do it. You know,
Yeah.
it's so much easier and efficient to just drop someone a link, let them look at the availabilities, pick what's worked for them, and then it just shows up on your schedule, their name, their email address, the notes. It's like it's all there. It's so streamlined and so
Yeah.
scale. You
Yeah.
could send that link out to 50 people, and your schedule would fill right up, versus trying to manage the email conversations of each
Right.
one.
Right. Let me go back to the overbooking question because I didn't
Sure.
get to what I thought. So the issue here is trying to get your team to do activities that are not necessarily part of their daily expectation when they've got downtime. So what I was suggesting is if you kind of understand how many hygiene appointments don't show up every day, how many cancellations show up, 5%, 10, 20, 30, whatever that percentage is, if you have an idea, you can like shortcut the problem of team members sitting around because of cancellations rather than having them make reactivation calls when they have downtime, which is difficult conversation and nobody wants to do it. Why not just overbook by the delta of your cancellations? So if you have 10% cancellations on average, just overbook through the online scheduling and you solve the problem to some degree. And it's not going to be easy for the team because they're going to have maybe 2 patients come in almost at the same time and they got to like kind of duck and jive a little bit. But then you solve the cancellation issue and you don't have empty chair time.
Yeah, this has been something that I think it's one of the aspects that we've built into TeamCare that's been so unique. Of course, there's, tools out there that give lots of different dashboards and analytics. Some of them are lacking in some of these practical in-office like information captures. And I did this with my staff on pencil and paper for a while. I would take a picture, I would take my phone out and I would take a picture of the schedule at the start of the day. And then I would take another picture at the end of the day. And at the beginning of the day, we would take a count of how many appointments did we have scheduled in the hygiene at the start of the day. And then as the day went on, of course, we got phone calls. This came up, I can't come. And at the end of the day, we would reconcile and say, well, what's the delta? What's the difference of the number of appointments that we started with versus the ones that we ended with? And inevitably, every single day in our world, it's about 25% that we would notice about a 25% drop off. And so if we were scheduling, a full day of appointments and expecting our staff to have a full schedule, they were really only working about 75% of those patient blocks. And so there's so many other industries that take this a little bit more proactively and aggressively and anticipate it rather than just let it happen to them every day. If you started to turn the perspective on this and say, hey, if I told you guaranteed it's that 25% of these patients would cancel, and we could basically isolate which ones would cancel, would you do anything? Would you react to it? Would you overbook it? Would you put more appointments next to the slots that were going to cancel? And I think we have all those reads based on the schedule, and a savvy office manager, front desk person is probably making some of those reads where they say, okay, this appointment is a voicemail. It's unconfirmed. I've called this guy 5 times. There's a pretty good likelihood that patient's not going to show up. And so if you were on the phone with a patient and they said, hey, I want to take that 8 a.m. slot, you'd say, you know what, this guy's not showing up. I'll give you that slot. And so I think that's really the next level of these online schedulers, even the one that we're building, is trying to make sure, just like your goal as a marketing company is to get butts in seats. Right. And our goal with technology is to do just the same and to look at these other sort of intangible things that really are actually tangible. You can really observe what the patterns are, what the cancellations rate are at every hour of the day, what the confirmation statuses are of these appointments. And make sure that the schedule gets filled. And so that when your beginning of the day compares to your end of the day, that like you're not at this huge deficit, that you actually were 100% utilized with your providers.
Okay, so I have a question about the problem with this. Let's use your 8 a.m. guy that didn't answer the voicemails, and so you double book. Okay, what happens with both patients come in?
So, just like an airline, if you've ever been traveling, the airline might say, "Hey, listen, we're offering you $400 to switch your flight." And that's obviously unrealistic. But there's an order of operations here. So, it's number one, is it really a catastrophe? Both patients show up. The reality of this is that maybe someone arrived 10 minutes early. Maybe someone arrived 15 minutes late. Maybe some hygienist had a kid that was 30 minutes. Maybe the mom and the kid were at the same time and we shoved them in the same room. Maybe
Right.
the doctor has a cancellation and the assistant is available that she can seat the patient and start doing the x-rays
Right.
for 15 minutes while the hygienist is. There's so many ways to solve that problem. And it really only happens 3% of the time. It's
Where
so
there's an
minimal.
actual issue. Yeah.
Where there's an actual issue and there's an exact overlap and nobody's available, it's like the statistical probability of that happening in practical terms is so low. And I think that this is kind of goes back to, well, staff members, they will make a big deal out of this. They
Yeah, they'll
will throw
freak
their
out.
arms, they'll freak out. Okay. And that's why me as a business manager, I went to the wall with it of actually documenting this, actual visualizing it, actually observing it so that I could share it with them. And with no certain like untruth, it's like, this is actually what's happened over every single day. I can flip through it with them. And
Yeah.
we've had to kind of make a culture shift there for people to be accepting of this overbooking strategy. And it's wildly effective. I mean, we look at one of the ways that we measure this is what we call utilization. And we say, okay, if you worked 8 hours as a hygienist, how many patients did you see within that 8 hours? And our benchmark is 8. So that, approximately you should see about one patient per hour. And so it's kind of the outcome of the effectiveness that if we look at this and we had 100 hours of hygiene staffing, how closely did we get to achieving 100 patients within those 100 hours?
Yeah.
And it won't happen without overbooking. There's no way you can schedule 100 appointments and have 100%, 100
Yeah.
of those
Doesn't
appointments
happen.
show up. And it doesn't happen. The only way to get to 100% utilization is to be a savvy overbooking where you're handling these situations.
How do you overbook with an online scheduling tool? What are you doing to make sure that the scheduler
Adrian,
actually does it?
That's our secret sauce. I couldn't air that out on the radio here.
Okay, so, well, it's doing it though. It's like
No,
you're
it's
setting
doing
it
it.
up in a way where
It's doing it. And it's like all of these things that we've done like manually as just trying to be savvy people that are, again, trying to make sure that we're utilized, that we have butts in seats. You can sort of document all of those things. Well, let's look at the confirmation status of the appointment. Let's look at the patient's previous history of things. We can kind of empirically identify which patients are likely to show and which patients are not, which times of the day are going to have higher cancellation rates, which aren't. All those things matter. And I think it's the online booking tool starts as this like vanilla, just show me the available appointments. But it's like we've really taken that kind of higher level concept of, well, let's fill the slots. It's not just about presenting the slots. Maybe, the typical staff member may not want to offer the last appointment of the day. We see that all the time. They don't offer 7 p.m. in our office every time. But, we've started to give the practice the ability to bias those appointments. Offer the patient the 7 p.m. appointment first. Maybe those appointments will feel better.
So you get it. Yeah. You guys are staying till 8. Tough shit.
Yeah.
You're
Like
staying till
you're working. And those appointments have a little green background on them. We have a little badge that says most popular. People click them. That's really,
Okay.
we want to fill the slots that we
That's
need, cool. Not just have the patient pass over and go to next week.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, dude, I'm going to let you go. That's awesome. Okay. What I will do is I'm going to put in this show notes. I'm going to put the ebook that we wrote because it's kind of in line with this
awesome.
topic. But I'm going to also include all of your contact, your website, and a free consultation. I'm sure anybody here was interested in this online scheduling tool that you've built. Take a look at it. Anything else that you want to say about this topic before we go?
No, I think that's been awesome convo. Thanks again for having me. I think there's a whole next generation of this stuff. If you're not doing basic online booking at some level, I think don't let your staff push you around. Do it. It's easy. But also there's AI voice and these overbooking concepts that I think we're going to be in a world where, the tools that we have are just going to say, how many appointments do you need? We're going to make sure your schedule's full. And that's a really exciting place to be. We can look at schedules at a different level and just make it happen.
Who's going to win the World Series? Go.
Dodgers.
2-2.
Dodgers.
Oh, I hate you.
Nah, I got my boy. I got a doc out there. He's had season tickets for 22 years. He's been waiting this for his whole life. I'm rooting for him.
Yeah, dude. All right, man. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for taking your time. I know you got to get to another meeting, so get out of here.
Adrian.
Beat it. All right, see you, dude.
Man. See ya.
Thanks for listening to Byte Sized Podcast. Tune in to stay up to date with everything dental AI and tech